Welcome back. So today we're going to be working with our trig functions some more. This is trigonometry part 2. So for today's we're actually going to be evaluating some degree measurements for our angles as well as using some triangles to find values. Okay, so the first example that I have here, we're going to be using a calculator to evaluate some expressions. I have cosine of 39. So on your calculator, if you have a graphing calculator like this one, you'll notice down here underneath the control button there's a trig button. So we hit that trig button and it pops up a menu that has sine, cosine, tangent on there. So for this one we want cosine. So we're going to scroll over to cosine. So we have cosine and then my angle measurement is 39. So I'm going to hit 39 and then enter. So then it brings up our value for us. For these, we're going to round to the nearest 10,000th place, which is 4 decimal places. So we have decimal 777, and then we're looking at the 1. 4 is less than 5, so we're going to leave it as a 1. So the answer here we have is decimal 7771. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to be doing this next example with a cell phone calculator. So if you're using your cell phone calculator, push this up just a little bit. If you're using your cell phone calculator, if you turn it to the side, you have a scientific calculator, and you should have sine, cosine, and tangent. Some of them, it's down here towards the bottom. On mine, it's up here in the middle. So for this one, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit my sine button first. We want sine of 67. So then you type in your 67 and you hit the equals button this time. And you should end up with this decimal 9205 and so on and so on. Again, we're rounding to 4 places. So 920. For the 5, we're going to look next door. It's a 0, so we're going to leave it a 5. So our final answer is the point 9205. Okay? Alright. So that's the basics of that piece. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is I have an actual triangle here. We're going to be finding x. We have an angle measurement, we have a side length. So we're going to be using those to be able to help us find x. Well, what's going on here? We have a right triangle. We have from this angle. We have an opposite. We have an adjacent. So which one of our trig functions is that? Well, that's tangent. So we're going to do tangent of our angle measure, which is 56 degrees, equals opposite, which is x, over adjacent, which is 97. Okay? So then the next step that we're going to do here is we want to solve for x. So that means we need to get this 97 out of the denominator. So in order to do that, just like we've done before, we're going to be multiplying by both sides. So we have 97 tangent 56 degrees equals x. So from here we're going to be using our calculator. So I'll start with using the graphing calculators that we have in the classroom. So in order to punch this in, we're going to be punching in 97. So just like it says here, hit our trig button. We're going over to tangent this time. Tangent, and then 56, and then we're going to hit enter. And we should end up with an answer for this of 100, and if we round to the nearest whole number, 44, and then our label would be yards. Okay, so the sequence, I just typed in 97, and then the tangent button, 56, and then equals, and that gave us an answer of 144 yards. Okay? Alright, so let's look at that same problem from a cell phone calculator. So we're going to do the same thing here. So 97 tangent, and then we had 56. So 56, and this time instead of enter, it's equals, and we come up with the exact same answer. Okay? Alright, great job there. So 144 yards. Okay, so you either hit the equal sign or the enter. Alright. We're going to do another example here. For this one, we're going to be finding the measure for angle A and angle B. On the last one, we had an angle measurement. This time we don't. We know the sides. We're going to find the angles. Okay? So in order to find angle A, you can do you can do any of your different trig functions, sine, cosine, or tangent. So for this one, we're going to do sine of A. So sine of A, if we're looking here at A, sine is opposite, which is our square root of 5, over hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is down here. Hypotenuse is 5. Hypotenuse, which is 5. Okay? Great job. So, from here, I'm going to find what that is as a decimal on my calculator. So I'm doing square root of 5 divided by 5. Okay, so depending on how you do this on your calculator, for me, I got approximately 0.4472. I'm going to go one more place, 1. So I have 5 decimal places there. And that's sine of A. But I still want to find A. So how do I do that? So on your calculator, you're going to actually be doing an inverse function. So in order to get rid of this, we're going to put sine on the bottom. But you can't have sine on the bottom without an angle measurement. So in order to do that on our calculator, we use an inverse button. So we're going to be using sine, and it has a -1. That's the button that we're actually going to be using. Let me just show you that on the calculator. So on the graphing calculator, pull up my trig functions, and if you notice there underneath the sine, it has sine and it has a -1, cosine -1, tangent -1. We're going to be using that sine -1 button. Okay, so sine -1, and then we're going to be taking that times this 0.44721. Okay, so let's give that a try. So sine and then 0.44721. And you hit enter, and we get 26.5648. So we're going to round that to the nearest degree. So I get 27 degrees. So A is approximately 27 degrees. Alright, so let's try this for B. So we're going to use a different trig function. So let's do tangent. Tangent of B equals opposite over adjacent. Opposite of B is the 2 square root of 5. 2 square root of 5 over adjacent is the square root of 5. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and slide up here. So on my calculator, I'm just going to type that in to get a decimal answer. So I want 2 square root of 5 and I'm going to be dividing that by the square root of 5. And I come up with 2. Your square roots cross out, so we're left with 2. Okay? Alright, so great job there. So this is still tangent of B. And if you remember, we're going to solve for B, so we have to divide by tangent. But like I said, we can't have one of our trig functions in the bottom without an angle measurement there, a degree measurement. So in order to solve this, we're going to do tangent -1. That -1, all that means is I took it from the bottom and I moved it to the top. That's what that -1 exponent means. And then I'm going to take it times 2. Okay? Alright, so on your calculator, that's what we're going to be typing in. So I'll bring the calculator back over here. And we're going to be going to our trig functions. We're going to scroll over to tangent and then down to the -1. And then 2. We're going to hit the number 2 and enter. And I end up with 63.4349. So approximately 63 degrees. So that's approximately 63 degrees. So angle B and angle A, remember those are going to be complementary because we have a 90-degree angle already, so these other two should add up to 90. And if I add these up, 63 and 27, I end up with 90 degrees. Now you may end up being a degree off, and that's okay because we are rounding, but in this case we were spot on, so it's exactly 90 degrees there. Okay? Alright, so sometimes you may just see it written out as sine of, like here, sine of B equals 2, or sine of A, let me scoot down here, sine of A equals this decimal number, and all you're doing is solving for the angle measurement. So you would just be doing this step here, dividing by sine, so doing the inverse sine, and multiplying it by the decimal number. Okay, that's all I have for today. If you have any questions, please post them on your WSQ, and I will see you in class tomorrow.